Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Let's Talk episode. We told you that October was a busy month, and if you've been following our conversations, it really has been a busy one because we've got lots of awareness times in October. And today is no different because it's a really special time this week as we explore hidden disabilities. And we know that there's lots of overlap from hidden disabilities into our neurodivergent community. So it's a really interesting conversation. I was just saying to our experts before we get started, as I'm out and about at the moment delivering training on behalf of Neurobox, lots of people are asking me about this intersectional relationship. So it's a really important conversation to have. Lots of us want to find out more. And so we've brought together some great experts from the FND Dimensions charity. So normally you will see me on these LinkedIn Lives. My name's Donna Stevenson and I'm the host for our Neurobox LinkedIn Lives. It's great to have your company. I have shoulder length brown hair. I'm wearing a white Neurobox t-shirt and my preferred pronouns are she, her. Now I'm going to introduce our experts and then we're going to get chatting. So I'm joined by Steph Blanco. Hi Steph.
Hello.
From FND Dimensions. Steph, you are the Vice Chair and you're the lead of the Medical Advisory Board at the charity.
Yeah, that's right. Hello, everyone. My name's Steph. Thank you for having me. I am wearing a black FND Dimensions t-shirt with just below shoulder length dark blonde hair, and my preferred pronouns are she, her.
Brilliant. Thank you, Steph. And thanks so much for your company. We've all got our t-shirts on today representing our organisations. Love it, Jane. And Steve, I think you've got a hoodie on as well, haven't you?
I do indeed, yes.
I love it. Brilliant. It's a great logo, a beautiful logo. But anyway, Steve, you are Steve Webster and you are the founder and CEO of FND Dimensions.
Indeed, yes. Good morning. It's a delight to be here this morning. So, as you say, Steve Webster, I'm the founder and CEO. Started this over 11 years ago, and my preferred pronouns are he, him.
Brilliant. Thank you, Steve. Last but certainly not least, we are joined also by Jayne Bratton. And Jayne, you are the chair of FND Dimensions.
I am, and I'm really excited to be here. So, my name is Jayne Bratton, as you said, and I have curly, or I like to say kinky, shoulder length hair because it's not neatly curly, and I wear glasses, and I have my blue FND Dimensions t-shirt on.
Brilliant. Well, thank you. We're all branded up for this conversation, but isn't it nice when organisations come together in this way? We are passionate about this one here at Neurobox. So thank you, experts, for your company. We don't normally have a panel, but we wanted to draw together because each of you bring your own expertise around these issues. So let's get talking then about this. So can you talk us through what is a hidden disability? And we've talked about your charity, FND Dimensions. What is FND as well, for those of us who aren't sure?
Yeah, I'm going to jump straight in on this one. So hidden disabilities are conditions that aren't immediately visible, but it doesn't mean that they don't have an extreme impact on the lives of those diagnosed. Some examples that people may be more familiar with are things like autism or ASD, ADHD, anxiety disorders, chronic pain conditions. They all fall under this umbrella term of hidden disabilities, invisible disabilities, or dynamic disabilities, because their severity and frequency can change on a day-to-day basis. Something that often is not discussed as part of this conversation is FND. And FND stands for Functional Neurological Disorder. Just like many of the other conditions that we're discussing, it's an impact on brain connectivity. The brain's not responding to the body correctly in FND. And it can present with a wide range of symptoms: cognitive symptoms, sensory symptoms, motor symptoms, seizures, etc. So a really wide-ranging condition with a lot of severe impacts for those diagnosed.
Yeah, thank you, Steph. That's a great starter off of terms of what we're looking at here.
I think it's also worth saying
please do share, Steve.
sorry,
Yeah.
Don.
That's
Yeah,
okay.
I think not invisible illnesses, they're not actually that invisible. You know, the fact that we're here today talking about them is for a good reason, because they are becoming more visible within society, and we're hearing much more about them, and we're seeing it through the charity work that we do. And the definitions Steph has just given are perfect. But a lot of those things and a lot of the traits for those conditions are actually very visible on a day-to-day basis for a lot of people.
Yeah. So not so hidden in those ways, because a lot of the, I guess, the manifestations are very visual, you know, experiences that folks will be manifesting with. On the back of that, then, why is this such an important issue for those, again, who aren't sure, for our neurodivergent community? Which expert would like to start us off on that?
I'll go again. So FND, the reason why we're here representing those with FND is because FND exists in the same space, but also for many people with a lot of these conditions, there's comorbidities. These things often don't exist in isolation from one another. Many people within the neurodivergent community will be aware that you develop a list of acronyms, that you develop a list of different diagnoses, and they can interact with one another. Also, the things that support one condition might actually trigger symptoms in another condition. So it really does muddy the waters. And as Steve said, you know, not we sort of shy away from the term of hidden, because in terms of the physical symptoms, they can interact and cause this chaos of different symptoms.
So, building on what Steph just said about hiding and the word hiding, I get a bit frustrated about this. And it's like, even I, with the confidence that I've got as a person, and I was in a shop the other night, and I was on one of my days where my feet weren't really on the floor, and I looked like a puppet, and I was I just look like a puppet. My legs are doing all things and my arms are doing all the different things. And a lot of people who have FND say it's almost like we look like we're drunk. We've even had members who've been challenged about that, oddly, in a supermarket, a different one, about, well, why are you drinking at 10 in the morning? So I haven't had to drink for 5 years. But because some of the symptoms are like slurred speech, or because we walk a bit strange sometimes, or some people have seizures and lots of different things happen, people get embarrassed to go out. People get worried about what other people are thinking. And walking around the veg counter, and I was thinking, I know what I look like. And actually, do you know what? That's other people's problems. It's not my problem. I should not have to hide because I am poorly. And no one else should either. And society over decades have tried to be more inclusive. My thoughts are the best way to be inclusive of any illness or any disability of any sort is to truly accept people for who they are. And if they've got symptoms that make them look drunk, or they're slurring their speech, or has happened to me, if a member of the public say to a shop assistant, please don't throw that stuff down the end of the aisle when I'm at the end of the conveyor belt when I'm trying to do my packing, because that will trigger an anxiety attack and that will make me go slower. And actually, if that carries on, I might end up on the floor and you'll have an ambulance here. To then have an argument with me to say that actually it's coming up to the shop needing to be closed and he's got other things to do was really not the right thing. I needed to have heard me.
It's something we hear a lot in the charity, that people are having to mask their symptoms in order to appear normal, and actually it makes them worse by having to do that. The kind of expression I normally go to is it's not a dirty little secret, and it shouldn't be seen as a dirty little secret that we have acronyms and conditions that people are living with day to day and having an impact on their lives, like in Jayne's case.
And I think as soon as we sort of say they're hidden, if we did that as an organisation, we're immediately invalidating our members and their conditions. So it's about accepting them, making them inclusive, and embracing the challenges people have and working with them. and finding ways around things so they're able to be active members beyond the charity and when they're with us in across the board. You know, whether they're out with friends, out by themselves. You know, it's part of their personality, if you like, and you know it shouldn't be shied away from.
Yeah, and that's how I feel about it. And I had a similar experience last Friday where we've got our bathroom being ripped out, finally. And we wanted to go and look at some stuff. And we went, and I'm not going to name which one, but we went to a localish bathroom shop. And the music was actually quite loud and I was really struggling with it. And so I said to a member of staff, I said, excuse me, I said, I'm really struggling with the music. I said, I think we're the only customers in the shop. I said, would it be a problem if it just got turned off while we were in the store? I said, because I can't concentrate. I can't focus to be able to make decisions. And she looked at me like I was less than the dirt on her shoes. So I then found myself saying to her, look, I'm really sorry. I'm her customer, potentially spending thousands of pounds. So I'm really sorry. It's just that I can't concentrate. I've got a neurological disorder called FND, and I'm not coping well today. My brain isn't braining, as my daughter calls it. And I said, and I'm just struggling. And I found myself apologising to a member of staff who looked quite a senior member of staff for the way they looked at me. And I think, do you know what? If the chair of a charity is being looked at in a way that makes them feel they shouldn't be there. And I said to my husband, I said, I feel like I shouldn't be here. I feel like I'm going to burst into tears. And he said, what are you going to do? I said, finish my tour round. And I just think if people in my position are feeling like that, people who are newly diagnosed or don't have that type of support around them, it is awful, because we're expected to keep our hidden disabilities hidden. And no, why a reasonable adjustment we're entitled to in law. So asking them just to turn the music off while I'm potentially spending thousands and thousands of pounds in their store, I thought was quite reasonable.
Yeah, more than reasonable, Jayne. And I'm so sorry you're having these experiences, but I'm so pleased that you're sharing them, because this is one of the ways that we break down the ignorance and misconceptions that seem to be existing in our culture around the lived experience for many of us in our society. And you're right, Jayne. I think what you say, I know how expert and confident you are. If you're having these experiences, you know, what happens to the rest of the community who aren't there yet, just finding out what this means to them? It is absolutely appalling. This is why we wanted to shine a light on this, because it has massive intersects into our own neurodivergent community, which, guys, brings me quite nicely onto this next question. Can you share how these invisible disabilities may be intersecting with our neurodivergent differences as well for some of us?
Yeah, so I mean, in terms of stats, broadly speaking, we know neurodivergent conditions, so things like ADHD, autism, ASD, dyslexia, that's about 15 to 20% of the population already. If we consider the wider space of hidden neurological conditions as well, things like chronic fatigue syndrome, FND, then we're talking about, potentially up to half of the population. If we looked at all the stats, combined all those stats together, that is a large percentage of our population that are actually experiencing these difficulties, yet something we don't discuss, something that rarely is on the agenda, something that many people have never heard of. And it comes as no surprise that obviously for some of that population, there's going to be quite an overlap between these different conditions as well. So I think one of the most common reasons why one of the most primary reasons we should be talking about this is simply because of how common it is and how many people in the community it impacts.
Thank you, Steph. I know you're a real eminent expert in this field. Am I right in thinking that long COVID is in this category as well, which is something that a lot of us are living with these days?
Yeah, and I think it's probably shined a little bit more light on, as terrible a condition as it is, it has done us a favor in bringing these conditions to make them more visible, to have more conversation around them. I mean, in terms of FND, we know there's a lot of potential triggers that are similar in many ways to long COVID. We've certainly had members of our community receive a diagnosis of FND after a diagnosis of long COVID. We've also had people prior to COVID who had viral infections, amongst many other triggers for the development of their FND symptoms. And again, yes, hopefully that, for as many negatives as there are about these conditions, hopefully one positive is that it's helping to shine a light on conditions that haven't been talked about for years.
Yes. Thank you for starting us off on that one, Steph. So thinking about this intersectional relationship, Jayne or Steve, would you like to add anything on to what Steph's just been sharing in that regard?
It's probably me next then, isn't it, Steve, to talk about this? So
Okay.
I've had FND, I can trace it back to when I was 23. Cutting a very long story short, I finally got my diagnosis about 4 years ago. For those of you who can't see me or don't know my age, I'm 56. So 23 to 56 is an awful long time. Last year, I was also diagnosed with ADHD, which to start with, I didn't identify with. I never thought of myself as having ADHD. It wasn't something that I'd ever considered. And I sort of tripped on it, really. But it explains so much. And I've also, a couple of years before that, I got diagnosed with CFS or ME, chronic fatigue syndrome. So I've got my acronyms, as I call them, and they trip each other up quite a lot. So over the weekend, I went on a university tour with my daughter, and there was a lot of new information to take in. There was a lot of walking around, and my brain struggles to process all of the information that my ADHD brain takes in. It then triggers off some of my FND symptoms and also leaves my CFS ME absolutely kicking. So last night in the car on the way back from Wales, I actually fell asleep, which I don't normally do, because I just couldn't process anymore. However, since diagnosis of ADHD, it's actually really helped me to understand how my brain works. And my psychologist explained to me that I'm the sort of person that my ADHD presents fairly unusually, that I need to have a process. Since I understand how my brain works, it actually then has helped with my, what was then significant anxiety attacks. My CFSME is pretty much under control now. And it's also because my brain is not so exhausted all the time, and Steph could explain much better the medical side of this, my FND symptoms have eased quite a lot. So not only is it around making sure people get their learn how to navigate their conditions, but also get a diagnosis. My diagnosis took 30 years for me to get for FND. I was 55 before I got my ADHD diagnosis. And I only found out about FND support in my own county because I went to a CFS ME consultant to get diagnosed with CFS ME. Nobody had reached out to me. Nobody told me that we had some workshops in our county. It is really poorly served. But anyway, that's my ADHD brain going off on a different direction. But in summary, mine trip them up, each other up. But since diagnosis, since aware of it, it's not that I want the label or I want that acronym. It's the fact I can now look at my brain and go, right, that's going on. So if I do that, that will then help me. So we've been in meetings, the three of us, when I go, I just need to take a minute. And I know it's because my brain needs to process a little bit, because my ADHD brain has gone off on a million thoughts and my FND brain is struggling. And Steph, I'm sure you can pick up the biology of that much better than I can.
Well, I think this is why these conversations are so important, experts, isn't it? Because it's by talking in this way that people can understand these overlaps, this intersectionality, so that we're not almost viewing our own physiology, our own ways that our brain works in all these separate little boxes. We are seeing that there's a fluidity there, Jayne and Steve and Steph. And I'm thinking, Jayne, what you were saying about the loud music in the DIY shop, I'm guessing now from your insights, you can understand how that can interplay with your differences that you live with in that way, and how it's so very important that the music is turned down before, like you say, it has a real impact on you.
But
I
shouldn't
don't know
we
if
as
you want to share on the
society?
back of that. There's a lot
Yeah.
going on in the chat box, guys, which I'm going to come to. This is really, resonating with folks. But Jayne, please do share more on that.
Shouldn't we be in the position where we don't need to have an acronym? Shouldn't have to have a diagnosis. I shouldn't have to say to people, I've got a neurological condition called FND or my ADHD strip in. And my reason behind that is, it's something you said about the music. For years, my husband and my daughters have known that when mum's not feeling too good, we don't play music in the house. I love music. I absolutely love it. But I can't think to walk, to talk, to eat, to swallow if there's music on. It's just too much for my brain. But why should I have a diagnosis for that? Why shouldn't we just accept Jayne's Jayne, Steph's Steph, Steve's Donna's Donna? We are who we are. These are the adjustments that I want. I shouldn't have to explain or justify. I'm not embarrassed about explaining I've got ADHD and CFSME or FND. And actually, do you know what? The fact I'm achieving what I'm achieving in my life, despite that, I'm actually quite proud of. So I'm certainly not hiding from it. But actually, why can we just not get rid of all this stuff around equality and just treat people for who they are and make reasonable adjustments for that person without me having to sit and go, oh, is that my ADHD brain or my FND brain or my CFS? No, it's me.
Yeah,
So,
wise words, Jayne. Really wise
you.
words. Steve, bearing in mind that you're the CEO of the charity, any thoughts about, this intersection between neurodiversity and these hidden invisible disabilities?
Yeah, I think, Steph and Jayne have covered it quite well.
Yeah.
There's not left me much to say. But no, I think it does link to that understanding. And it's the understanding from the person's point of view in terms of the person with the whatever acronym they've got and their condition and their understanding of that and what their triggers are maybe that we were being alluded to. But as Jayne's just been saying, it's that wider understanding across society and within communities, within businesses, within schools, within the health sector, wherever it may be. It's if everybody just, if there was better training, more awareness, that there would be a better acceptance of it because people just understand from the start. And as Jayne said, the people are accepted for who they are rather than having to go through a whole raft of special maybe tests or the adaptations are already in place for people. It should be about making life easier for people, to allow people to integrate in any sort of area in the way that they want to. So it just becomes a normal part of everyday life. And it's not something that's stigmatized. It's just normal across the board.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. And thank you for the work that you all do individually and when you come together in your charity FND Dimensions. It's greatly appreciated. I think the labels are useful while we're trying to learn, and then hopefully, as you say, Jayne, Steve and Steph, we'll get to the point where it is just, I'm Donna, how are you going to try and get the best of me? And we've got Jayne and Steph, and we're all individuals. I think I know the answer to this one, guys, bearing in mind everything we've just talked about so far. But I'm going to ask it nevertheless, because I think it'll take us in a different direction as this conversation gathers momentum. Do you feel there's enough awareness out there about the impact of hidden disabilities? Who'd like to start me off on that? No. Thank you, Steph. No.
Sorry, just no.
No. Steph, do you want to explain why it's a no?
Yeah, for me, there's there's so many different elements to this question. Yeah. I could kind of drone on for a while. I won't, but the short answer is kind of no. There's this huge misconception that adaptions, that awareness, that all of these other things is expensive. And so alongside working with FND Dimensions, I'm a neuropsychologist. I often provide consults for things like student support or for businesses, talking about adaptions specifically with FND in mind or other hidden conditions and disabilities or dynamic conditions. And one simple example is was speaking to a large organization, and they said, but we can't change the way our buildings look. We can't change these things that you're suggesting. And my answer was, the changes can be so simple. A change of light bulb to a softer or warmer light, for example, could have a huge impact for a lot of people with lots of different hidden disabilities. The softening lights can help to reduce some of the sensory overload, some of the harshness that they're trying to experience in their environment. That is one small, inexpensive change that can make a huge impact. And again, I feel like that links to awareness, because if people were more aware that of the existence of these conditions and of the how widespread they are, how common they are, then we could start to have these conversations about small adaptations that can be made. But we're still trying to break the barrier of awareness right now before we even broach the conversation of, adaptations can be really simple, really inexpensive, really quite subtle differences that make an absolutely huge impact. So yeah, there's my slightly longer answer to the no.
Brilliant stuff. And you know what, you're getting me thinking, because we're talking here about the intersectional relationship between neurodiversity and FND, hidden disabilities. But actually, guys, it's the intersectional relationship between the modifications, the accommodations that we can make. Because actually the change in light, or coming back to what you said, Jayne, about having quieter times in shops and so on, no blaring music playing, actually can help. For example, our autistic community, they benefit from that as well. And it's this idea that these micro changes, I think, Steph, has a brilliant knock-on effect for lots of us in many different ways.
The entire community. And I think that's one of the things that when we're trying to raise awareness, when we're trying to allow FND to be part of that conversation as well, we're trying to highlight and emphasize that actually, given how common these conditions are as a collective, these minuscule changes don't just have an impact for the one person potentially with a diagnosis of this, they also help all of these others as well. I mean, in that same consultation, I believe I was told we don't have anyone with FND in this organisation. I thought, are you sure about that? Really? I'm pretty sure you will. You just haven't asked.
This is it. It's fascinating, isn't it? And on Friday, I was delivering some training. I had some folks in the room from a dementia charity, and I was delivering training about neurodiversity. And they were talking about how a lot of what I was suggesting would really be beneficial to their community who are living with dementia. And I'm thinking, Jayne, about what you said about the very fast conveyor belt, for example, in the supermarket. Again, very upsetting, I suspect, for somebody who's living with dementia to be working at that very fast pace, trying to get you shopping back into your trolley and so on. So this has a knock-on effect, I think, in terms of something really positive that can support lots of us who are living with a variety of differences. Steve, I don't know if you wanted to come on, share thoughts on the back of what Steph's just been saying.
Yeah, I think the thing is the thing that's a shame is that we're talking about having to make changes and adaptations and alterations, and there might only be minor things. And obviously, depending on the size of the company or whatever it might be, there's economies of scale, and obviously it's more difficult for some than others. A smaller business, for example, the costs, etc. But if all these things were designed in from the start, actually where they considered, right, who are my service users going to be? Who are my customers? We've got a broad spectrum of people. How do we make sure we cater for all of them? And if all that was designed in at the very start, then they wouldn't have to worry about making adaptations and alterations, because things would already be in place. And those buildings, wherever it might be, would be suitable for everybody, no matter what their symptoms are, and they'd have the confidence to go there. And by doing that, then we're integrating everybody much more into the local community and into business, and giving everybody the same opportunities. Where at the moment is people are having to pick and choose perhaps where they go shopping or when they go shopping because of the noise in a certain shop or the lighting in it. And that's just crazy. It's, we're in the 21st century, we're talking about all these things, and, we're hearing from different organizations and big, companies or whatever, that they're listening to the people with hidden disabilities, as they're quoting as, but it's not paying it lip service. It's about taking action from the start, which would really make a difference.
Yeah, and I guess, Steve, that comes from an awareness for the individuals, organisations who are out there to speak to the communities of which, most of us belong in some way or other. It's that almost inclusive, universal design concept, isn't it? That we create things in anticipation, that we've got, we're all individuals in that way. Jayne, I don't know if you want to share thoughts on the back of what we've just been chatting about.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things we've been talking about are physical things that can be done as well. But some things, it's really subtle things, like receiving an email that's got the bullet points. So for somebody who's got very many different types of neurodiverse challenges, not just me, but the whole community, to receive an email where there's 5 or 6 points embedded within a paragraph, and there's another paragraph, and you sit looking at it and think, what are you asking? What are you telling me? So we as an organisation, not realising at the time about my own ADHD, because I run my own company as well. So my own company, we've always broken down our emails very succinctly with big gaps in between our paragraphs. I didn't realise then the reason I was doing it is because that's how I absorb information. I like it broken down in bits. But it's really simple to do. And light bulbs are simple. Building a new building that adapts for people with so many different types of disability, it's simple at that stage. But we can all write an email in simple English with no jargon that is broken down. We can all explain things at the pace that somebody is struggling to understand it. If we're doing a workshop and somebody's got ADHD and they just want to sit at the front because it's less distracting, it's so easy to put something on that says reserved and tell them there's that place that's reserved for them. You haven't got to tell anybody why. These things are not complicated to do. And building on what Steve said about lip service, I see it so often where organisations or training providers or whatever come up with, yeah, we'll do this and we'll do that. And in reality, they don't. They think they are. But actually, as an organisation, FND Dimensions, flip it. And we go, okay, so they're not doing it. Why aren't they doing it? Oh, they're not doing it because they don't understand. I like to believe that most people and most organisations really do care. And what we perceive as lip service is their lack of knowledge. And therefore, for me, I would rather sit with somebody and explain to them why this is important. And if I've asked for an adaptation and it's not happened, then to follow that through with an explanation about why. FND is erratic in terms of with a lot of people in terms of the symptoms. So I'm speaking okay today. I was quite slurry yesterday. I have days I can't talk. I have days I'm globally paralysed. So I'm on the floor and I can't move, speak, talk, nothing. I can't even blink. When we have members coming to us hiding their symptoms from partners and loved ones because they are not believed, because FND specifically is erratic. Sorry, Steph, that's probably not the biological term. Steph, I'm sure can put some medical statements around this in a minute. But because it's so erratic, it can change from moment to moment or day to day. I don't know when I wake up in the morning if I'm going to be paralysed or I'm going to be fine and able to walk a mountain. I don't know what I'm going to be like when I wake up. I don't know how it's going to be evolved throughout the day. I am, however, extremely lucky that my husband and my children and my friends and my family all believe me. And how I say I am is how I am, and that's okay. There's not many people who have a family around them that are that supportive. And to answer the question you started at the start, which is there enough awareness out there? One of the reasons they're not believed is because there isn't the awareness. So it's not just about having the awareness for the sake of being able to go to a shop, which is really important, but also awareness that our members are believed, that society that have any form of neurological diversity or neurological challenge, we should be believed for what we're saying. And I do know that some people, for some reason, with some disabilities, talk about it and exaggerate it a little bit. I can honestly say, in 2.5 years of being a member of FND Dimensions, I have never found that about one of our members. And one of the things we start with is, we believe you. Because there's not many people around that have any appreciation of the erraticness of FND. And we start at the point of, we believe you. Full stop. We believe you.
And all of these conditions, you know, a lot of the conditions that we're talking about fluctuate so much. And it's the reason I like the term dynamic disability. It is dynamic. It does change. And as Jayne said, minute by minute, sometimes the perception that a disabled person or a person with disabilities is always going to be the same day in, day out is one of those stigmas that we're still having to fight against and spread awareness about. And it's until we've even broken that conversation, how can we start to have the more complex conversations about awareness of particular disorders or awareness of particular adaptations that can be made, when the very basic principle of people can change on a day-to-day basis? Just as my mood changes, my conditions can change. Again, like Jayne, I'm speaking quite freely and without any obvious symptoms right now. But it could be that by tomorrow I'm paralyzed. It could be that by tomorrow I've lost my speech or I'm slurring my words. These conditions can change in a moment. And until we've had that conversation of an awareness of dynamic disabilities change by the moment, what I need one day is not what I need the next, we can't possibly start to have the bigger conversations that we need.
Thank you, Jayne and Steph. So am I right in thinking, Steph, the phrase dynamic disabilities is a better phrase for us to try to get used to using, to try and summarize some of these lived experiences that you guys are explaining to us?
I don't know if it's probably the best term. I mean, that's the one I go to. I'm not saying that it's certainly the best. I just think it's a little bit better than the kind of hidden.
Better fit. Yeah, for what we're trying to describe. It certainly sounds like it is, because I think we need to capture this sense of, which will be a surprise for some folks, the fact that it can change and fluctuate, and that you won't know, like you say, when you wake up that day, what the day holds for you. I love what you say, Jayne, we believe you. I can just imagine how wonderfully supportive that message is. So, Steve, on the back of that, you know, what the message you share for your community first, we believe you, this is a safe place to be.
Yeah.
Can you share about the work that you do to support individuals then in your community and create this sense of community amongst folks?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's all about offering a safe space, I suppose, in the first instance. The fact that they can join us, and they can either be an online meeting. We have face-to-face meetings as well, although they can be more difficult to organise due to the very variable nature of FND. But yeah, it's offering that safe space. So when people come to us, they don't have to explain themselves. You know, they're with people who get it. There's an understanding there, and that can be quite overwhelming when people first join us. Very often they come to us, they've been given their diagnosis of FND and told to go away and get on with it. And so the only place they can turn to for support is the charity sector and someone like FND Dimensions. So we often get people join us the first time, you know, they might be a little bit nervous or whatever, but quite often the first thing we see, or the response from the person, is they burst into tears, because it's suddenly this relief that they're not alone, they're not the only person with this condition, and that's so powerful. And it's God, if I had £1 every time for you know when we'd be funding the charity through it, it'd be great. But it's it's then about helping them become active members. And we see such changes in people as well when they join. They can be extremely quiet. If it's an online meetup, for example, they might have their camera off, they might mute themselves, and they can come along to a meeting and they can be like that through the whole meeting and not say anything and then disappear at the end. And that's fine. We allow, people can join in the way that's comfortable for them to join. And we run all sorts of support groups from where we just allow people space to talk about their FND and ask questions of each other, share practical advice. We sometimes bring in people from the outside to talk on particular subjects and who are expertise on maybe something like PIP, for example, and how to apply for it. And we also try and do things which are fun as well and allow people to, in a sense, put their condition to one side. We run a group called Coffee and Create, which is all about people being creative. We've got a couple of excellent leaders on that group who are members themselves. They have their FND and other conditions, but they're extremely talented in their artwork, in their crafts, etc. And they lead practical sessions, and people can take part in those sessions, or they can bring their own crafts along and join in. It's so there's also a book club, as well as those online support groups where we do talk particularly about FND, and we see these changes and our members become more active. And we've had members that have literally done nothing from the start, said nothing, that are now leading groups. They start to come out of their shell, they start to talk, they start to ask questions, then the camera comes on, and then they get more involved, and then they want to join more groups, and then they find themselves supporting other people. It's not just about themselves. They realize, actually, I can answer this question somebody's asking because I've been through that. And it's this realization that actually, wow, I have something to offer here. I'm not just a burden. I'm not just a drain on society. I'm not isolated. I can participate here. I can help. I can support, and that goes throughout the whole organization. So we have people who are leading groups. We have people who have become key volunteers. Our volunteer numbers at the minute just keep rising and rising. There are more and more people want to get involved in what we're doing because it's such a safe space, and they're happy and they want to give something back. But it also links right through to our board as well. Those members then also become board members. So the people with the condition are there helping to lead the organization from the front. Everybody is, we're all sat here, we've all got a title in front of us. Jayne as chair, Steph as neuropsychologist and our vice chair, me as the founder and CEO. But at the end of the day, that means very little. Personally, I hate the term CEO. I drop it like a bomb, just very easily. It's because we're all, it's a level playing field. It really is, as much as we can be. And obviously, yes, there are certain things where certain people have to take on certain responsibilities to things because we're a registered charity. But as much as possible, that membership is, and the way we run is open to any member who wants to get involved. And it's not, if somebody comes to us saying, "Can I help?" we will, we'll do what we can to find a space for them in a way that suits them, to do just that, to get involved and be part of what we're about.
And the reason that works so well, the reason why people stay and choose to volunteer is because of the power of the community that's been created. And it's one of the most positive spaces I've known because of how beautiful and empowering almost that, that community is.
Yeah.
Just a few thoughts. Oh, sorry, Jayne. No, go for it. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this as well. I'm feeling really emotional listening to
it. It is quite unique.
Well, just a few things that's hit me from what Steve and Steph were just sharing, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, Jayne. It's of the community, by the community themselves, and I think that authenticity is so important. But also, Steve, and you said it as well, Jayne, when the message is the first message, we believe you, and people are then getting really emotional on the back of that, that's making me think, how tough has their life been to get to the point where the wonderful support they get from you initially makes them feel so emotional and so relieved? What's their story like by the time they've found you? Thank you guys for your service, because it sounds like it is so powerful for the community that you serve. And that was what was making me kind of emotional, because I was thinking, how tough must their life be to, by the time you guys say, as simple as we believe you, that is just, means everything to folks. Jayne, share thoughts on this, because I love hearing what you're saying about everything.
Thank you. So I absolutely agree. And my story is quite the same as everybody else. I was very poorly. I was in bed 4 days a week. Many people are bedridden 24/7. And when I was diagnosed, before I was diagnosed, because obviously I got diagnosed very late. I remember when my symptoms first started really kicking off really badly this last round, and it felt like somebody had pulled the rug out of my life and kicked me in the back of the knees. And I'd gone from running multi-million-pound IT projects in corporate to being in bed, not being able to speak, not being able to think, struggling to get to the toilet. Swallowing was really difficult. I was lost. I'd lost me. I'd lost my identity. I'd lost everything about me, other than the support of my family, which is how I got through it. And I was extremely lucky in some ways because of what I didn't realise then, but my ill health. When redundancy came up at work, I was made redundant. And because of that, it drove me to set up my own business. So when my symptoms got really, really bad, I used to be able to take projects on that would enable me to fall out of bed to my desk to do a meeting and then fall back into bed. And on the days I felt well enough is when I would work. So I was really lucky that I was actually able to work, whereas a lot of people can't. And we set up a program called Step by Step. And Step by Step is all about helping somebody who wants to move forward. Now, we've talked about the way that FND changes throughout the day, the dynamicness of it. And so a Step by Step is all about, you wake up in the morning and you work out 3 things you're going to do that day based on how you are feeling at that moment. And yes, it can change because obviously FND changes. Sometimes that's as much as message one person, clean my teeth, and actually eat something someone gives me. Another day, it can be something quite significant. We also say 3 points of self-care. So Step by Step is a program that we run as a group. We run an online group. We've got an active chat group. We do workshops around it. It's all about helping people to move forward with their lives. We've also got other things like the Neurodiversity group. And I'm smiling, if anybody can actually say I'm smiling, because when we've got the book club and we've got the Coffee and Create Club, they're phenomenal. And they tend to stay fairly much on topic. Neurodiversity, we don't even try. We just let the group go, because there's no point in trying to sort out a topic to talk about with people like myself in that group, because we just let them do their thing, like me included, and we just do our thing. We meet up once a month. It's cool. And we've also got an access to education and training group, which actually is so inspirational to hear people's journeys and their desire to learn. We're very proud of her, completed her PhD. And that's inspired so many of our members. And because of that group, I've recently started a qualification myself, inspired by our members. So, yeah, they're an inspiring bunch of people. And talk about inclusivity, we are still members. People think that because we're on the board. No. I'm on the board. I'm a member too. And, if I'm not feeling very well and I've had a bed day, I'll turn up in bed, even on my phone, in my PJs, with my pillows behind me. And I remember thinking about it should I be doing that now? I'm chair. And I think, yeah, because actually I am a member. I have FND. And someone once said to me, what the chair can do, we can all do it. And I'm like, well, yeah, absolutely. We'll take you whether you're talking, whether you're having a seizure. We have people have seizures on, and we just say to them, all right, we've got you. And we know with each person what they want us to do. And we just take you as you are. It's fine. Yeah. And I love that.
Wow. I love it too. Thank you again. for what you do. It makes such a difference. And I love that we've got you. You know, how simple is that? But it's so powerful, isn't it? Experts, I've got one other question to ask you, but I want to go to the chat first, and then we'll ask the final question as we round up. This conversation has been so powerful. I'm so pleased that we've given space for this. We've got some folks who are saying this is the first time they've joined LinkedIn Live. So thank you for your company. I hope these conversations are resonating with you. We've got lots in here. I'm just having a look through. We've got an individual in the group. I won't name folks, so I'll just share the thoughts. I found myself telling people about my disabilities now. If I get a hint that they are treating me or judging me or not being fair, it helps, but we shouldn't need to be doing that. So that's the thought shared. We've got our experts nodding. Different thought. I asked for the music to be turned off. So this is on response to what you've been sharing, Jayne, about the DIY shop. So I asked for the music to be turned off in my office for 1 day a week to help me concentrate. And I was told no, because it would mean those who needed music wouldn't be able to concentrate on that day. An interesting one. Any thoughts on the back of that one? Jayne, what are you thinking?
Yeah, sorry, that's just made me really angry. There are a thing called earphones or headsets. Yeah, and what they'll probably find is the people who have asked for it to be turned off, this person's asked for it to be turned off, they're probably not the only one who would benefit from it being a bit quieter. And actually, you can put music in to your ears. It's a lot harder to stop the sound completely. And if you try and stop the sound from music, you're also stopping the sound from safety alarms that go off, or people coming up and talking to you, or when you're on the phone. So, and actually, if people use the earphones instead of having it through the loudspeakers in the office, they can choose whatever music they want to have on. So that has irritated me. Actually, I feel really frustrated on behalf of that person.
Yeah, and it's not neuro-inclusive when we're thinking about neurodiversity either. For a lot of neurodivergent folks, we don't concentrate so great if there's lots of music playing. We've got comments in the chat. Have we thought about autism as well as ADHD? And I think we have. We're talking about all neurodivergent differences here, I think, experts, aren't we? And how they can overlap.
Definitely.
Yeah, so
we've got a member on our board who's got autism.
Yeah, thank you, Jayne. We've also got a comment about folks who are living with ADHD who might be on medication for that. And how, so this is in the context when we were talking about labels. Now having the labels is helpful while we're sharing a shared language, both for the community and for conducting research. So thank you for that. It's real wise words there. I think we've got a question here as well. We've got, would someone who needed accommodations from an employer actually have to disclose any hidden disability that they have, or could they just ask for adjustments without specifying why? Any of our experts like to share thoughts on that one?
The difficulty tends to be that you have to list conditions, and I mean, partly it goes back to that idea of shared language. The issue is that accommodations that work for one person with that diagnosis may not work for another person with that diagnosis. I would say it's very much your own individual choice as to how much of your health information you share. It is always, that is your private data, that is your personal data, and it is up to you and the part of the journey that you are on as to how much you disclose to anyone. You know, there may be some settings or some instances where you don't feel comfortable to share, and that is absolutely your choice. All of this should be your choice. But in terms of asking for accommodations or adaptations to be made, I don't see any reason why we should have to list the disabilities that lead to those adaptations, simply because it's going to be different anyway. Just because I need something to work with my FND does not mean that another person who comes forward with FND will benefit from those same tools that I've had. So yeah, I very much feel it should be personal choice. I recognise that in terms of process in certain companies that may not be the case.
Yeah, thank you, Steph. And I think to add to that as well, for that individual asking that question, what you share should be confidential anyway. So if you're nervous to share because you think, oh, everybody's going to find out or I'm going to be judged, I would hope that if you're choosing to share, it should be confidential. so that nobody else finds out, but then you get the support that you need. But please do, that person who's asked a question, keep in touch with us. We're more than happy to assist. I know our experts have said that they're happy for folks to reach out to ask some of these questions about your own experiences. We're all on LinkedIn, but also FND Dimensions as well as a charity. And of course, we're always here as well for that individual here at NeuroBox. And please reach out to me as well. So thank you, everyone. I've got one eye on the time. We've overrun, guys, but I'm glad. I'm not sorry about that. I'm glad, because this is such an important conversation. But my last question is, and I'm going to come to each and every one of you, if that's okay, experts, is about what advice would we share for folks who are listening to this conversation? Steph, may I come to you first for your closing thoughts, advice for our communities?
Yeah, I mean, my thing would be about allies. I don't think it should always be the responsibility of those who have the conditions to keep fighting for this change. And I know that's where it stems from in all of these communities. The fight for awareness and for equality stems from the communities themselves. But I'd actually like to ask that those who are not members of these communities, those who do not have these conditions, just take a moment to educate yourselves on the variety of conditions that there are. Support those who have challenges with hidden disabilities. Don't always assume that those with hidden disabilities have the time or energy to explain to you what it is that they need from you. Take a moment to maybe try and educate yourself, listening to events like this and other workshops, to just gain an understanding of what you can do to be an ally and support those with hidden conditions.
Thank you, Steph. Brilliant. Steve, same question to you. Words of advice for our community?
I think it kind of just links into what we've kind of said overall, really. Just embrace it. You know, there's organisations out there like us. We're not the only ones, but embrace the differences you've got, and don't let them hold you back. Get involved, make the links with the communities that are out there, and get actively involved. And that way, you can break down that isolation. You don't have to be alone. It doesn't have to exclude you from community and things that are going on. There's ways that you can get involved just as a member or play an active role in leading things. And that can come on your own terms when as if you're ready. It's just know that you have a place and it's there waiting for you to grab.
Thank you, Steve. Jayne, final thoughts then from you to our community.
Wow, Steph and Steve have said such amazing things.
Yeah.
I'm going to share something that my husband said to me when I first got very poorly, and I was apologising for the impact my illness was having on him and my daughters. And he said, and I said, why are you putting up with me? Why are you still here with me? And he said, you are still the same person. You are still you. And listening just to this conversation today, and it's like, yeah, I am. Everybody is still them. And we talk rightly about we are worth being respected. How dare people treat people with a lack of respect just because they've got a disability? It's mad. We have the right to be treated and heard and seen fairly. We should be treated with respect, like everybody should be. Take some power back. Empower yourself is what I would say. You are still the same person inside. Find a community, find a tribe, find a peer support group, and stand up. You are worthy.
I couldn't say anything better than what you three have just shared. So thank you so much. Thank you for what you do for the communities that you serve. We sound like we need to be on quite a long journey ahead to get to the place where we need to be to support folks in all the ways that we've talked about. Guys, for those of you listening, this is the longest ever LinkedIn Live Let's Chat that we've ever done here at NeuroBox. But there's a reason for that, because this is a huge issue that I know I've certainly learned a lot today about the work that needs to happen now within this community for all of our individuals across all of society. But of course, you know, we're thinking about neurodivergent individuals during this conversation. So I, for one, are going to do my utmost now to support the work that FND Dimensions does. And I know that NeuroBox will be also passionate about that. So thank you, experts. Thank you for everything that you do and continue to do. This is a long journey ahead. Your work has been so special so far, but we've still got a way to go here, and we must keep talking and keep supporting each other. Thank you everyone for your time.
Thanks, Donna.